The silent drift. For endless years, the alien ship floated in the dark space. No planets nearby, no stars close enough to warm it. Only the cold emptiness. Its once bright hull was now covered in scratches, dents, and frozen dust. Inside, the corridors were silent, filled with the smell of old metal and the faint hum of failing power systems. In one small chamber, a stasis pod stood alone, its glass coated with frost. Inside the pod lay Rinka, the last survivor of her crew. She had been sleeping for centuries, her mind trapped in dreams of a home that no longer existed. Her race had been hunted, their ships destroyed, and their worlds turned into ashes. She had escaped in this vessel, thinking she would find help. But instead, she had been drifting, forgotten by the galaxy. Her dreams were not peaceful. She saw the firestorms, the explosions, the faces of her people disappearing into light and shadow. Every time she tried to run in her dreams, the darkness caught her. It whispered to her, telling her she was the last one left. It told her she would die alone in the void. One day, something changed. The ship's sensors, half dead and barely functioning, detected a distant vibration. It was faint. At first, like a heartbeat far away, the vibration grew stronger, and a dim light flickered through the darkness outside. It was not a star, not an asteroid. It was moving fast, steady, with a purpose. Rinka's mind stirred inside the pod. Her body was weak, but her instincts were alive. Something was out there, something that was not the hunters who had destroyed her world. Through the frost of the glass, she could see shapes. A large ship, bigger than hers, moving closer. Its lights were white and gold, not the red of the enemy. It slowed down, scanning the area. Inside the approaching ship, the horizon's light. Human voices filled the bridge. Captain Elias leaned forward, looking at the strange object on the main screen. "It's an alien vessel," one crew member said. "No signal, no movement. Could be salvage," another replied, "or a trap." Elias's eyes narrowed. He had seen many wrecks in his life, but something about this one felt different. It was lonely, almost sad. The human ship moved closer, mechanical arms extended, holding the alien vessel steady as they docked. The airlock opened with a hiss, and the sound echoed through Rinka's empty ship. She froze in her pod, her heart pounding. She had heard about humans long ago. Dangerous, unpredictable, warriors of old battles. Some stories said they were monsters, others said they were saviors. She did not know which to believe. The sound of boots on metal rang through the corridor. Flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing walls covered in frost and drifting dust. The humans moved carefully, scanning every corner. One of them stopped in front of the stasis chamber. Through the glass, he saw her. He stepped closer, wiping the frost away with his glove. Two glowing eyes stared back at him, frightened. Confused, yet still alive, Captain Elias joined him, his voice calm but firm. "She's alive," he said. The crew exchanged glances, unsure of what to do next. They had no idea who this alien was, or why she had been drifting for so long, but in that frozen moment, one thing was certain. The silence of the drift had ended. Rinka's fate was now tied to the humans, and the vast, empty void around them was about to witness something it had not seen in centuries. Hope. First contact. The frost-covered glass slowly cleared under the human's gloved hand. Rinka's glowing eyes blinked once, then again, as if trying to confirm that what she saw was real. She had not seen another living face for centuries. And now, before her, stood a tall figure in dark armor, with a strange light strapped to his chest. The human's helmet visor reflected her pale, trembling form. Behind him, other humans stood at the doorway, their flashlights cutting through the icy darkness of the chamber. Captain Elias stepped closer, his breath calm but steady through his comms unit. "She's alive," he said again, his voice carrying a strange mix of relief and caution. The crew gathered around, staring at the alien in the pod. To them, she was a relic of another time, a living piece of history pulled from the jaws of the void. One engineer muttered, "She could be dangerous," another whispered, Or she could be the last of her kind. Rinka's heart pounded in her chest. Her instincts told her to stay still, but her mind screamed to escape. She had been taught in childhood that humans were unpredictable, capable of both mercy and destruction. In the legends of her people, humans were described as strange beings who fought fiercely for survival. Some stories told of alliances, others of brutal wars. She didn't know which kind of human stood before her now. Elias tapped the control panel on the side of the pod. Old systems groaned in protest. Lights flickered, and with a hiss, the stasis chamber unlocked. Cold vapor poured out as the glass lid slowly lifted. The sudden rush of air hit Rinka's lungs, making her cough violently. She stumbled forward, her legs weak from centuries of stillness. Her breathing was fast, uneven, her chest rising and falling as her eyes darted between the humans. The humans did not move closer. They watched her carefully, giving her space. Elias raised both hands slowly, palms outward, a gesture of peace. Rinka tilted her head slightly, recognizing the motion from old diplomatic images she had once seen. Still, she stayed low, her thin arms wrapping around herself. The air in the room felt heavy with the weight of their first meeting. One crew member, May, stepped forward holding a small box-shaped device. She spoke softly, activating the translator. A series of beeps and hums filled the air as the machine tried to interpret Rinka's language. At first, it failed, producing garbled sounds, but after a few tries, Rinka heard a broken version of her own tongue. Safe. No harm, help, the translator said in a stilted voice. Her lips parted, dry and cracked. Where am one? She asked weakly, her voice trembling. The translator repeated her words in human speech, and Elias replied, "You're aboard the Horizon's light. We found your ship drifting." She blinked, trying to process his words. She looked past him at the doorway, seeing a glimpse of light, real light, not the cold shadows she had known for so long. They tried to ask her name, Rinka. She said slowly, the sound unfamiliar to human tongues. May repeated it carefully, and Rinka nodded slightly. She wanted to ask many questions about where she was, how much time had passed, what had become of her home, but fear kept her quiet. Her body was shivering, not from the cold, but from the weight of memories pressing against her mind. Elias gave a quiet order, "Get her to Med Bay," slowly. The crew moved aside to give her a path, but Rinka did not move right away. For a moment, her glowing eyes locked onto his. There was something in his gaze, a promise unspoken, a steadiness she had not seen in centuries. She felt a small shift in her chest, something fragile but warm. As they guided her through the frozen corridors, Rinka looked back one last time at her old ship. It had been her coffin and her shelter, her prison and her home. Now she was leaving it behind. The metal walls echoed softly with her fading footsteps. For the first time in hundreds of years, she was not alone. She did not know if these humans would be her saviors or her captors. But the silent drift was over, and whatever came next had already begun. The language barrier, the Med Bay lights were soft and warm, a sharp contrast to the frozen shadows Rinka had known for centuries. She sat on the edge of the bed, her thin hands gripping the blanket as if it might vanish if she let go. The humans moved around her, speaking in a language she did not understand. Their voices a mix of calm orders and quick chatter. Every sound was strange to her ears, harsh in some places, soft in others, like a song she couldn't follow. May stood beside her, holding the translator device close. She spoke slowly, letting the machine process every word. At first, it produced nothing but static and broken sounds. Rinka tilted her head, her glowing eyes narrowing as she tried to make sense of the strange beeps. It was frustrating, this wall between them. They could see her, they could touch the same air, but their words were trapped in separate worlds. The captain entered quietly. Elias leaned against the doorway, watching the alien girl without rushing her. His instincts told him that forcing conversation would only push her away. He had seen the same guarded look in survivors of war before, in human eyes. Not alien ones. May tried again. This time the translator caught a phrase, repeating it in Rinka's tongue. "You are safe here," the robotic voice said slowly. Rinka blinked, unsure if she could trust the words. She hesitated before speaking. "Who are you?" she asked in her own language, her voice dry but steady. The translator took a moment, then repeated her question in human speech. Elias replied in short, clear sentences. "I am Captain Elias. This is my ship, Horizon's Light. We found you in your vessel." The translator's voice cracked slightly, but the meaning reached her. Her shoulders lowered a little, the tension in her hands loosening. May sat across from her, setting the translator on the table between them. "Your name?" she asked. "Rinka," the alien said softly. The sound was difficult for the device, but it managed a close enough version for the humans to repeat. Hearing her name in their voices felt strange, almost like hearing it through a dream. She had not spoken it to anyone in centuries. As the hours passed, they managed to share basic words. Food, water, ship, danger. The translator worked hardest on these. Through broken sentences and clumsy gestures, the humans learned she had been drifting for 487 years. The number made the room fall silent. Even Elias, who had seen many strange things in his life, felt the weight of those words. 487 years alone, with nothing but the hum of failing machines. When they asked her about her people, her voice dropped. She told them, in pieces, about the hunters, ships with no markings, their weapons bright as suns, how they came without warning, destroying everything they found. She had fled with her crew, but one by one, they died or were lost in the dark, until she was the only one left. Her eyes grew distant as she spoke, her voice thin, as if she was speaking from the bottom of a deep ocean. The humans listened without interrupting. Some glanced at each other, already realizing that whoever hunted her might still be out there. Rinka noticed the change in their expressions. She understood that look. It was the same one she had seen in her own commanders long ago, the look of people weighing survival against risk. She feared they would decide she was not worth saving, just as others in her life had done. But Elias surprised her. He leaned forward, his voice steady. "You're safe now. No one will harm you here," he said, letting the translator carry the words into her language. She stared at him for a long moment. In her world, promises like that were rare, almost impossible, and yet, for reasons she could not explain, she believed him, at least a little that night. As the ship drifted quietly through the stars, Rinka sat in her quarters. She studied the translator device, pressing buttons and testing sounds. Every new word she learned felt like building a fragile bridge between her and the humans. She was still afraid, still unsure of their true nature. But with each word, the silence she had carried for centuries grew weaker, and somewhere deep inside her, a small spark of trust began to glow. Asterisk shadows in the void. The horizon's light sailed quietly through the cold black sea of space. Stars drifted slowly outside the windows, distant and unreachable. Rinka stood by the glass, her hands pressed against the cool surface. She had not looked at the stars like this in centuries, not from a place of safety. Yet even here, in the warm light of the human ship, the darkness beyond still felt dangerous. In the control room, the crew monitored the scanners. Most days, the only signals they picked up were drifting rocks or old wreckage. But tonight, something appeared on the edge of the radar. A small flicker, faint but steady, following their path. The technician frowned and adjusted the readings. "It's nothing," one crew member said. "Maybe space debris." But the flicker didn't vanish. It moved when they moved, keeping its distance. Rinka's ears caught the change in the human's tone. Her eyes narrowed. She stepped into the control room, the translator hanging from her neck. "What is it?" she asked, her voice already tense. Elias glanced at her, then back at the screen. "Something's trailing us," he said. Her breath caught in her chest. "Show me." she demanded. The crew hesitated, but Elias nodded too. The screen, the faint dot was almost invisible, but she recognized the pattern instantly. Her fingers curled tightly. "They found me," she whispered. The translator repeating her words in broken human speech. Elias stepped closer. "Who found you?" he asked. "The hunters," she said, her voice shaking. The room fell silent. Even the sound of the ship's engines felt quieter, she explained. Quickly, these were the same ships that had burned her world. They didn't just kill, they hunted survivors across centuries, never stopping. "They will not stop until I am dead," she said, "and anyone near me will die too." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Some shifted in their seats, already imagining what might happen if the hunters caught up. One crew member muttered, "We should change course," another whispered. "Or drop her off somewhere safe." Rinka heard them, and her chest tightened. It was the same fear she had felt when her own allies had left her behind long ago. Her glowing eyes dimmed. Maybe she had been foolish to think humans would risk themselves for her. But then Elias spoke, his voice firm. "No," he said, "we're not leaving her." The words hit her like a shock. She turned to him. Unsure if she had heard correctly, he met her gaze without hesitation. "You're on my ship, and we protect those on my ship," he said. There was no translator delay this time. She understood the meaning without it. Something in her chest shifted again, deeper than before. The radar blip grew stronger over the next few hours. The hunters were closing in, slow but relentless. Elias ordered the ship into a safer route. Weaving through asteroid fields and debris clouds, Rinka sat beside the pilot, pointing out dangerous areas and hidden paths known only to her people. Her voice was steady now, the fear pushed down by the need to survive. She had been running for centuries, but this time she was not running alone. Still, the hunters were patient. They stayed just far enough to avoid a direct fight, like predators. In the wild, they circled, watching, waiting for the right moment. Rinka could almost feel their eyes on her through the void. She remembered the burning cities, the screams in the combs, the way the hunters' ships never slowed until the last light of her people was gone. Her fingers tightened on the edge of the control panel. If the humans fell because of her, she would never forgive herself. As the ship slipped through the shadow of a massive asteroid, the radar blinked again. This time, more dots appeared. Not one, not two, but 4 hunter ships, all spreading out. "They're surrounding us," the pilot said. Elias didn't flinch. "Then we fight our way out," he said. Rinka turned to in shock. "You don't understand," she said. "They never lose." Elias gave her a half smile, one without fear. "Then they've never fought humans before," he replied. The human choice. The control room was tense. Red warning lights pulsed softly along the walls, matching the steady thump of the ship's engines. On the main screen, the hunters' ships drifted closer, their dark hulls reflecting no light, like pieces of the void itself. Rinka stood near the back, her hands clenched, her breath shallow. She could almost hear the echoes of her past, the screams, the flames, the silence after. Elias paced in front of the navigation table. His crew watched him, waiting for the order that would decide all their fates. One officer spoke first. "Captain, we could outrun them if we dump extra cargo." Another said quietly, "If we hand her over, they might let us go." Rinka's eyes lowered at those words. She had heard this before, in the last days of her own people, when survival meant sacrificing someone else. But Elias stopped pacing, his boots loud against the metal floor. He turned to face his crew. "No," he said firmly. "We don't give up people to save ourselves." His words were sharp, cutting through the fear in the room. "This ship stands for something, and that means we fight for anyone under our protection." His gaze shifted to Rinka, holding her eyes. "You are one of us now," he said. She froze. The translator spoke his words in her language, but she had already understood them in his tone. For a long moment, she couldn't speak. In her life, no one had ever said those words to her, not since her home burned. She felt something warm stir in her chest, something that had been frozen for centuries. The crew exchanged glances. Some nodded, others took deep breaths, as if accepting the weight of what was coming. Orders began to fly across the room. Weapon systems charged, shields reinforced. Evasive routes plotted. In the hangar bay, engineers worked fast, checking every cannon and turret. The sound of tools against metal filled the air. The Horizon's light was not a warship, but every bolt, every panel, every weapon was being readied like it was going into the biggest fight of its life. Rinka found herself moving through the ship. She stopped at the armory, where crew members were suiting up. One soldier offered her a small sidearm, a human weapon. Heavy in her hand, she hesitated. "I haven't held a weapon in centuries," she said softly. The soldier smiled faintly. "Good time to start again," he replied, in the war room. Elias studied the tactical display. The hunters were spreading out, boxing them in from all sides. "They'll hit us in waves," he said, "trying to wear us down." He tapped a point on the map. "We break through here, hit them fast, make them scatter, then jump to light speed." It was risky, but there was no safe plan. Rinka stepped forward. "There's a better route," she said, pointing to a cluster of asteroid shadows on the map. "It's tight, but my people used to hide from the hunters here. Their larger ships won't fit." Elias studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "Show us," he said. For the first time, she felt like her knowledge mattered, like she could fight for them the way they were ready to fight for her. Hours passed in preparation. The hum of the ship grew deeper as the engines charged. Every crew member took their position. In the observation deck, Rinka could see the hunters now, dark shapes gliding silently. Like wolves in the snow, her body trembled, but not from fear alone. For the first time she wanted to face them. She wanted to stand beside the humans and make sure this time, the hunters did not win. The final alarm sounded. Elias stood in the center of the bridge. "All stations ready?" he asked. "All ready," came the answer. He looked once more at Rinka, and she gave him a small nod. It was not just his choice anymore, it was theirs, together. And in that moment, she understood the difference between the humans and every other species she had known. They didn't just fight for themselves. They fought for each other. Asterisk battle in the black. The stars outside seemed to hold their breath. The Horizon's light powered forward, its engines roaring through the silent void. Rinka stood beside the captain's chair, her eyes fixed on the approaching darkness. The hunters were there. 4 ships, sleek and predatory, sliding into position like blades being drawn. "Shields at maximum," Elias ordered. The crew's hands moved over glowing controls, locking in firing sequences on the radar. The hunter ships split, circling. "They're trying to surround us," the pilot said. Elias's jaw tightened. "Then we break their circle before it closes," he replied. The first shot came from the hunters, a beam of red light slicing past their port side. The impact shook the ship, alarms blaring through the corridors. Rinka gripped the railing, her heart racing. Memories flashed, her homeworld burning, her people falling one by one. But this time, she was not helpless. "Return fire," Elias commanded. Cannons thundered, sending streaks of blue energy across the black sky. One hunter ship tilted, its shield sparking under the impact, but the others closed in, faster now. Firing from every angle, the Horizon's light weaved sharply, diving into an asteroid cluster. Rocks the size of cities drifted slowly around them, casting deep shadows. "Keep tight to the asteroids," Rinka said quickly. "They can't risk firing too close. The debris could hit them too." Her voice was steady, cutting through the chaos. Elias nodded, guiding the ship between 2 massive stone walls. Hunter fire followed, but the blasts exploded against rock instead of metal. The gunners waited for their moment. When a hunter ship drifted too close to the asteroid edge, the Horizon's light struck. A direct hit tore through its hull, sending it spinning into darkness. The crew erupted in brief cheers, but the victory was short-lived. 2 more hunter Ships fired at once, slamming the human vessel hard. The floor shook under Rinka's feet, sending her against the railing in the engineering bay. Sparks flew as systems overloaded, shields at 60%. A voice called over comms. Elias didn't hesitate. "Divert power from secondary systems. Keep us in this fight," he said. The ship's lights dimmed slightly, but the shields brightened. Another volley shot out, striking a second hunter and forcing it to retreat. One hunter remained locked on them, relentless. It cut across their path, forcing them toward open space, away from asteroid cover. "They're hurting us," the pilot warned. Rinka's eyes narrowed. "They want a clear kill shot," she said. Elias looked at her. "Then let's make them think they've got it," he replied. The horizon's light slowed. Drifting as if wounded, the hunter moved in, weapons glowing. Elias waited until the exact moment before impact. "Now!" he shouted. The ship spun sharply, opening all forward cannons. The blast tore through the hunter's shield and into its engine. Flames burst out, and the Predator spun away into the void. Broken. Silence fell except for the steady hum of the engines. The battlefield was littered with debris. Glowing softly against the dark, the hunters had fled, all of them. The crew exhaled in relief, some slumping into their seats. Rinka stared out the window, her chest rising and falling. She had seen the hunters retreat before, but never. Because they were beaten, Elias stood, looking over his crew. "Well done," he said simply. His voice carried the weight of a promise kept. Rinka turned to him. "You fought them." "And won," she said quietly, almost in disbelief. He met her gaze. "We fight for our own," he replied, and in that moment, she realized she was no longer drifting alone in the void. She was part of something bigger, something worth standing for. The hunters would return, she knew that, but now, she wasn't just running from the shadows. She was ready to face them. A new home. The battle was over. The hum of the horizon's light filled the air like a steady heartbeat. Outside the windows, pieces of hunter wreckage drifted slowly, glowing faintly against the endless dark. The crew moved through the ship, repairing damage, checking systems, and tending to the wounded. There was exhaustion in their faces, but also pride. Rinka stood on the observation deck, her hands resting on the glass. The stars felt closer now, not like distant cold lights, but like old friends. She could still feel the echo of the fight in her bones, the shudder of the ship, the flash of the weapons, the roar of victory. For centuries she had imagined the hunters as unstoppable, but here, today, she had seen them flee. She had seen them lose. Footsteps approached, and she turned to see Captain Elias. He stopped beside her, looking out at the drifting wreckage. "They'll come back," she said softly. "Yes," he replied without hesitation, "but so will we." There was no bravado in his tone, just certainty, a quiet strength that made her believe him more than any promise she had heard before. She looked at him for a moment, then asked, "Why?" He frowned slightly, not understanding. "Why risk your crew?" "For me?" Elias shrugged. "Because no one survives alone out here," he said. "And you're not alone anymore." The translator repeated his words in her language, but the meaning had already settled in her heart. For so long she had been the last of her kind, carrying her people's memories like a burden. Now, for the first time, she felt like those memories could be shared, like she could tell someone her story, and it would matter. Days passed as the horizon's light repaired and resupplied. Rinka began to learn more human words without the translator. She ate with the crew, listened to their laughter, and even smiled sometimes. May taught her how to work the ship's scanners. In return, Rinka showed them hidden star paths known only to her people. Every day, the gap between alien and human grew smaller. One evening, Elias called her to the bridge. The crew was gathered, and on the console lay a small metal badge, the ship's insignia. He held it out to her. "This is for crew members of the Horizon's Light," he said. "If you want it, you're one of us." Her glowing eyes widened. She took the badge, slowly feeling the cool metal in her palm. It was simple, yet heavier than any metal she had ever seen. It was not just a symbol. It was proof that she belonged somewhere again. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I want it," she said. That night, she stood once more at the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before her, but the emptiness she had carried for centuries was gone. She knew the hunters would return. She knew danger was never far in the black ocean of space, but she also knew she would never face it alone again. The horizon's light turned slowly, engines warming for the next jump as the stars blurred into streaks of light. Rinka's reflection looked back at her from the glass, not the frightened, drifting survivor she had been, but someone stronger, someone with a home, someone with a crew. And as the ship vanished into the deep currents of the galaxy, she whispered a quiet promise to herself. She was done running. From now on, she would fly.